something that I've realized that we all have that infatuation with the past, the old school mentality, the back in the day. Everyone says traditions are dying, and some attribute it to that people don't care or people it just, it's not a priority for them. But traditions, they didn't die. It's just life got too loud for them. This is the another episode here of the Ball Podcast with your good friend Rocco the comic. Thank you for joining me for another episodio, as we like to call it here. Um, yeah. So this is something that it's just I've been thinking about. It's something that you see a lot. A lot of people just we are obsessed with the way it was, and part of it is I don't know if because if those were happier times for us, so we wish we could go back. It's like old school. Everyone wants everything to be old school. You remember how this was, and in my little bubble of this Italian American world, it's something that I always you always hear, you always see. It's the joke, and it's something that I wanted to talk about because I know there has to be people who feel the same way as me or have the same thought process. And it's just I want to open up that discussion. I mean, here's the thing. You've always I just posted a video of me making soppressata at home. The amount of comments that that got like, "Oh my God, you're making soppressata in your living room. It's not gonna be a mess. You're not doing it in the basement. You're not doing that." Here's the honest truth. I This is my basement. I can't do soppressata down here because it's too hot down here. I don't have a garage to do soppressata in, so the living room was the only option for me. And that's where I started thinking. We all hear, right? Everyone talks about how Italians have the kitchen they cook in and the kitchen they never touch, right? We all heard that. Oh, they had the fancy kitchen upstairs, but they really only cooked in one kitchen. That it was like basically the museum kitchen, right? Everyone, you hear that a lot in this world when we talk about the past. I never had that growing up. I never had the second kitchen. We couldn't afford a second kitchen. We barely afforded the only kitchen we had. So when people talk about, all the fancy kitchen, with all the fancy furniture that no one ever touched, or everyone had, the living room you actually watch TV in, and then the museum living room that no one was allowed to sit in. I didn't have that. I did not have that growing up. So when people talk about that, I can't I can't connect. I cannot connect to someone talking about that because we didn't live that life. Uh, we could not afford a second kitchen. We didn't afford. I grew up until third grade. I mean, my entire life I grew up in an apartment. Right, from when I was born to third grade, we rented. Right, we rented an apartment in Bensonhurst. It was 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, one kitchen, one living room. We didn't have plastic on the couch, right? Because we only had one couch. We didn't have another living room that was for visits or if the Pope magically came over. We only had one. So when people talk about all this stuff, it's like it's a disconnect for me. I don't connect with that world because I was not raised in that world. Do I know people who had the second kitchen? Do I know people who had that fancy living room? Yes, I knew a lot of them. There was a big difference between my upbringing and those people had money. those people had money. They lived in houses where the basement was something dedicated, where they had multiple floors, they had the fancy kitchen. I grew up in not in a my family had no money. So this whole thing, and I wonder where it started, where it came from, that all Italian households weren't the same. You know, this social media romanticizes only one version of the Italian American, Italian Canadian, Italian Australian, whatever upbringing, right? And what I found is it's tilted towards the ones that were raised with money. Because the ones that weren't didn't have what we're talking about. We didn't. I did not. So when people talk about like the couch with the plastic on it, I've gone to houses where the couch had plastic on. I have. But most of them didn't. It's like maybe in the 1970s or 60s they did. And somehow my generation's like, yeah, we're still going to talk about it. But we didn't have this setup that everyone talks about. And it's something that I don't connect with it. So it was something that always bothered me, and you sit there and you look back at your own world, your own upbringing. It's like, why was it different like that? And it all comes down to we were not all the same. Yes, our parents were all stubborn in the same ways. They all had this sick mentality with different things. But they weren't all identical. And that's where I wanted to bring that up. I wanted to know from other people that when you hear these people talking about the second kitchen, the plastic on the couch, the museum living room, do you feel like I feel when you don't connect with that world? Because most of the Italians didn't have money. You know, a few of them did. The ones that were smart enough to have pizzerias, to start businesses, stuff like that. Like, I'll admit I'm the first one to admit I did not come from a line of hustlers. I wish I did. You know, I wish I could speak to my ancestors like, not one of you could start a business. Not one of you can like generate wealth that would hand down generation to generation. Like, does every part of my life have to be on hard mode? Like, I wish I could, but I don't. That my life is what it was. It is what it is. I didn't connect with that. And talking about, and here's something that the houses and all this stuff, and we talk about e-visita. E-visita was something that was so important growing up for my parents. So important, and it's something that we still talk about today. We still talk about it. We still joke about the panettone. How we regift it. Okay? How we regift panettone left and right to all these people. Be honest. Be honest with yourself right now. How much panettone do you actually receive now? Is it exaggerated? Just for the sake of us exaggerating it because we're looking back at old school on how the visite was a thing? Because visite, they're not a thing anymore. I know a handful of people who still try to hold on to that world, but it's not. You can't show up uninvited to someone's house. 99% of the time, those people aren't going to be home. You need advanced planning to do any type of visite. I have friends who I love with all my heart that I would consider them my brothers that I haven't seen in years. And it's not because we don't want to see each other. It's not because we grew apart. Well, yes, some people probably, they still find time for other people, but whatever it is. The reality is, even if I wanted to, life isn't as calm as it used to be back in the day. It's not the same. Everyone has things to do. Everyone has somewhere to go. You can't, you don't have, who has time to go visit someone and just talk for a half hour, for an hour, for 2 hours, whatever it is? Who still brings the panettone to every person's house? I'm serious. Listen, I live in West Bumblefuck now. So even if people want to visit me, they're not. No one's visiting me. No one's coming all the way up here to visit me. No one's doing that. So, yeah, maybe if I lived in Brooklyn, but I haven't received a panettone in years. If you ever see me with a panettone, this is where it came from. I go see my aunt, my tia Franca, who is a banker, and she still gets a ton of panettone from customers. She'll have them, and I'll go when I see her, and I take whichever ones I like best. Which, if you know me, it's the one with the chocolate, or the one with the pistachio cream, or any cream. I hate the fruit ones. Pandoro is boring for me. I'm a fat kid who loves chocolate panettone. Okay? The ones with Nutella, pistachio. All that stuff is my jam. So I don't get panettone from people. I don't buy panettone. I steal them from my tia Franca. She has too many. She ain't eating them. So I'll go to her house around Easter thing, whenever I'm there, and I steal her panettone. That's where I get it. But i visite is not happening. They're not. I mean, maybe if they are, let me know. I know I'm not. I mean, granted, the people I would need to visit are dead. All right, and I'm not going to visit any young people because they're busy. It's not the same anymore. When we grew up in a neighborhood, right? Neighborhoods. The neighborhood was a thing. It's not now. There isn't a neighborhood anymore. We grew up with a different generation of people, right? Where everyone knew everybody. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. Rocco the comic was just a fat kid who wasn't allowed to cross the street by himself until he was 14. It's a different... I can't even tell you who lives near me. I don't know what the guy's name is who lives 4 doors down from me, 3 doors down. I don't know them. If I saw them in the street, I wouldn't even recognize them. I do not know anyone who lives around me. Why? Because I'm always in my house doing this. Or I'm at work doing that. Or I'm at a soccer field with my kids. The neighborhood means ugats now. There is no more neighborhood. Right? We did not... Everyone's business... Everyone knows your business now because of social media. Not because of the neighborhood. The neighborhood's gone. We used to live... We used to live with everyone in the neighborhood. Now we just live next to each other. That's all it is. There's no community. There's nothing. So that's where it all... Times change, people change, and that life isn't there. It's like, it's sad, but it's the reality, right? You can want to change it yourself as much as you want, but it's not going to force anyone else to change. And that's where I start thinking about parenting. You have these people, and as a dad, I see parents all over, in family and thing. I see parenting all types. And the part that gets me is people who I'm like, oh, I'm raising my kids old school. I'm raising them the right way. The way, my father raised me this way, so I'm going to raise them the same. It doesn't work that way. You know, it does not work that way. Just because your parents or your father raised you the certain way when you were a kid in 1996 doesn't mean you can raise your kid the same in 2026. Okay? Everyone, it's a different world because at home you're raising your kid like it's 1996. Then your kid wakes up, goes to school with kids from 2026. It's not just because your parents were mean to you, and this is one of my biggest thing is just because like your dad was tough on you, your dad was mean to you, your dad was this, does not mean you have to repeat that to your kids. You know, I know people who, because their dad was tough on them, because their dad really never hugged them and stuff, they're the same to their kids. Like you don't you don't want the difference. You know, you're raising a kid for a world that doesn't exist anymore. You're not raising the kid in this world. And I think it only hurts the kid. Yes, are we softer now? Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying the old way wasn't the better way. I'm not saying it's wrong to be tough on your kids. It's wrong to be tough. It's wrong to yell. I'm just saying it's a different world. Okay? You like I just said, you can't raise a kid for a world that doesn't exist. We have to stop pretending that the parent that that toughness equals tradition, basically. Right? We have to change the mold. We have to be different. You can't teach a kid, like you can't have a kid who's, oh, he's already learning a trade. I'm making him learn plumbing now. He's 11 years old. He's got to learn all this stuff. Let the kid be a kid. Please, for the love of God, let the kid be a kid. We are so in a rush to make these kids grow up so fast that these kids don't have childhoods. They don't enjoy anything. Okay? You're not raising them old school. You're just ignoring reality. You're being stubborn to your ways. Context is very important in all this. And that's it's it's something that bothers me being a parent and seeing it the other way. I'm the first person for holding kids accountable to not raising little assholes because a lot of people are raising little assholes, right? Some people take it too far. There's a balance. There's a balance between old school and bubble parents and, helicopter parents. There's a balance in there, right? But there's some people who just take the extremes on both sides that ruin it for everybody, you know? But and that's where it ties into, you know, it not being 1996 anymore and not being able to, and the traditions and EVs it there and stuff like that. It's we don't life moved a lot slower. And I don't know if I'm saying that, and I don't know if it's factual, if it's true, because again, I was a kid. So I'm assuming it couldn't have been this stressful. I don't know. It's not like I can ask my parents. They're not here for me to answer. For me to ask, they're not here to answer that question. So I'm going to rely on other people who are older now, who had to raise kids in the 90s and the 80s. I feel like life is a lot crazier to hold on to traditions. I wish that I was able to hold on to more traditions, but I can't. I don't have the time. You know, uh, yeah, there's still some people who only have a single parent working, the mom or the father, whatever gets to stay home. It's a little easier for those people. You know, I grew up, both parents worked, so Nonna was my babysitter. Nonno raised me, basically. Mostly Nonna, because Nonno, up until, I want to say 10, was still a butcher. I think he retired. I forgot what age I was when he retired. So Nonno with my everything. They raised me. Up until then my father couldn't work anymore, then my father was home, but there still was a mixture. And then like I look at myself. I and again, this is from my scope. I don't know what it was like for parents back then, the workplace. I know now that our schedules are crazy. I know that the pandemic kind of forced people to have a more of a work-life balance, more of a family time, and now we're just going back against that to where jobs don't really care about family time, where people who are parents are looked as like being inconveniences for the office. I mean, in my own sense, yeah, my office, I have a boss who looks at parents with kids as an inconvenience. I have my boss actually told me once that it's your personal choice to have kids. So I traditions are not easy to keep. I have, and especially kids and sports. Kids and sports. I growing up, I was not an athlete. Obviously, you can tell. I'm not athletic, so I didn't really do soccer. I wished I could. I begged my father to sign me up to go to FIAO and sign me up for soccer with the federation. I begged for it, and I don't think it was my parents not wanting me to do it more than them knowing I wasn't going to do it. Because my father finally did sign me up, and I got assigned to. Back then, they had the soccer teams were named after Italian teams, so I got assigned to body, and I remember I went to the first practice, and they had us run laps, and I thought I was having a heart attack after the first lap. So I made my father take me home. And I never went back. So that was my experience with sports. And then when I hit high school, that's when I got more serious into it. Because I'm look at me, I'm a fat kid. There was no shot I was playing sports. I played sports in the schoolyard. I was, 12 years old playing against old Mexican men, playing soccer in the schoolyard at 186. That was my childhood. That was my league, right? But now there is no more of that. There's no kids going to schoolyards and playing pickup soccer, pickup basketball. That doesn't happen anymore, right? Everything is scheduled. Everything is professional. You have kids these days training as if they're playing in the World Cup this summer. You have coaches talking to these families if they don't put a second mortgage out on their kids so they could train like they're going up against Messi tomorrow. That's what we're living with now. Kids have these ridiculous sports schedules. Parents have their working schedules. Where are we finding time for tradition? I would... Sunday sauce. Okay, Sunday sauce. The sauce, the good one. The good sauce. The sauce that stays simmering for hours. Hours. Who the hell has time to simmer a sauce for hours? Who? Who has time? I know families who have kids that play hockey that they have to be out the door by 4 a.m. for a 7 a.m. ice time. All right? Soccer parents who are at tournaments for the whole day. Where are we simmering sauce? What are we doing to keep these traditions when we're all at these fields, at these rinks, at these things with our kids? Because if you're the one who says, I'm not buying into that, you're left back. You're left back. Your kid's the weird kid in school. We have to. Unfortunately, we do live in a keeping up with the Joneses world. So traditions feel harder because we don't have time for anything. I barely have time to do this podcast. Right? It's crazy. We are just, I personally am just finding little skibbits of time. I don't even know if skibbits is a word. I just made that up. If it's a word, I've been paying attention somewhere. If it's not, pretend it's a word. Skibbits of time. I don't think that's a word. I'll Google it later. Remember, I don't Google stuff. We just find little time to do whatever we can. Tradition, that's the first thing that gets dropped. I wish we could still have traditions. I wish we could still do certain things. We just don't have the time. And speaking of dinners, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, what my dinners look like. That every night I had dinner with my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my nonna, my nonno, my tio Mimo, and my tia Franca. Every night. Even when we didn't live in the same house, every night. And then little by little, it stopped. There wasn't really a reason. It's not like there was an argument or a fight. It just stopped. And to think now, if I wanted to have dinner with my sister every night, right? That would involve with me driving 2 hours every day just to have dinner. Because once again, the community's not there. Who lives in Jersey? Who lives in Staten Island? No one lives by me. Everyone went a different way. I'm the only idiot who went north. So, it's just not there. And it's sad. It's sad. I wish I could see my sister and my aunt every day. Yes. Reality, no, I can't. But it's just, that's what life is. I think even if I lived 2 doors down from my sister, we still probably wouldn't see each other as much, just because life is everywhere. And that's not anyone's fault. Because tradition and this stuff is the first thing that everyone sacrifices. And it's not right. It's not wrong. It's what it is. And then you get people now, it's like, I don't allow phones at the dinner table. Why? We are connected the entire day. That's why the dinner table was more important. listen, I have dinner with my kids and my wife every night. Every night we have family dinner, we sit together, and that's it. We're around each other, and my kids are on their tablets. Me and my wife are on our phones. Does that mean we're a broken family who's not doing it right? No. We're in constant contact. My wife texts me all day. You know, back in the day when we did it, the only time you saw each other was dinner. Because my mom and my dad weren't calling each other the whole day. They weren't talking to each other the whole day. They were in two different places. My father was at the barber shop. My mother was at the doctor's office where she worked. We weren't in constant contact. So it's not that big a deal if you're sitting there on your phone. At least you're around each other. Do sometimes we have full conversations at our dinner table? Yeah. But silence is fine. Here's the thing. I think too many people cannot handle silence. Silence is fine. I'm totally fine if you just want to sit near me on your phone quietly. You don't have to talk. You don't have to say anything. If you want to talk, we talk. Even if we're just in the same room, that's fine. That's the new way it is. Because why are you forcing these conversations? Why are you making the kids hate it? Just like I said before, just because you were raised one way doesn't mean you have to keep that way going. You're not... It's... You know... That's where I just think of everything. All these traditions. All these things that they just stopped. It all just stopped. No one said they were going to stop. No one announced it. Nothing happened. It just stopped. It's like I seen videos online. It's like, and I think about it. Like they said, there was one time when your dad picked you up in his arms, and it was the last time he did it. And neither one of you knew it was the last time. And that's crazy to think about. You don't know when the last time is of something. Sometimes you do, but most of the time you don't. You know, it's like all my friends growing up, we saw each other all the time. All the time. We probably went days in a row where we just saw each other every day. And then one day, just stopped. No reason. It just stopped. And it's sad to think how things that brought you so much joy can just fade. And it's not because the heart's not there, the desire's not there. It's just, that is life. Life just keeps pulling you in every direction possible. And sometimes strings get cut. And then you get pulled. And you don't control what string is going to get cut. You might say you want to. And some people do choose which string gets cut. More power to them. But most of us just go with the flow. And that's where my next thing I'm going to talk about. And it's just something that I'll be honest with you. The roof you see behind me is not paid for by comedy. Unfortunately, I am not popular enough in the least bit to be able to do all this comedy stuff full time. I wish I could. I wish I did. But the reality is I can't. So, as a lot of people probably are experiencing in their own thing, jobs are asking people to go back to their offices more and more often. Right? And that's what's happening to me. My regular job is having me go to the office more. I used to work from home more than I was in the office. Now I'm going to be in the office more than I am home. That home time allowed me to do more of this. Allowed me to make more videos every day. Allowed me to, start up the podcast and have a recording schedule and pay attention to merch and stuff like that. But now the reality is I'm going to have to be in the city more days. So what's going to struggle is that I have to fit a lot more shit in the little time that I do have home. Because the reality is I can only do the comedy stuff from 8 to 2 during a day. Not even 8, 9. 9 to 2 during a day is where I have to find the windows to do this, to do a podcast, to do my videos, to do anything. Because that's when the house is empty. That's when I have a little more freedom and time. So as next week I start where I have to be in the city more. So this is why this episode is coming out later than normally. Usually I would film on a Tuesday or a Monday and then release on Wednesday. Monday, my kids and my wife were home from school. I couldn't record an episode because it's not fair to them to everyone to say, hey, shut up, let daddy do a podcast. Nobody do anything for how long as this takes. Tuesday, I had to go down to the city for work, so I couldn't record. Because I don't get home until 6:30 when I go down to the city. And then when I get home, everyone else is home. We have to do dinner. We have to do that. By the time I realize it's 9 o'clock, I got to go to sleep. Because I go to sleep early. I'm an old man. So I just ask that everyone, going forward until I figure it out better, one string that I have to cut a little more from is the podcast. In the scope of Rocco the Comic world, the podcast is the newest part and the part that doesn't do as well as everything else. But I'm still going to commit to be doing it. So it might come out later during the week. The schedule might be a little bit floppy, but I'm going to try my hardest to keep it consistent. But just bear with me while I figure it out. And thank you for your support on that. All right. So on that note, maybe we could start our own traditions, Maybe the physical traditions aren't what we can do anymore because of our time, but maybe start a different tradition. We can't recreate 1996. We can't recreate 1984. But maybe little parts of it we can. As always, thank you for listening to the podcast. This is Rocco the Comic. Go to roccothecomic.com for all your Rocco needs. State buona. Looks like a flower. No? I still don't know what to do with my hands. Ciao.